This time at the Quick Speed Shop, I'm putting some more of the shiny bits back on the Model A Hot Rod shop truck. So after finishing, in the last video, finishing the wiring inside the cab here, I've moved up front and I'm putting some trinkets here back on the engine. If you notice, I got the chrome air cleaner. I got one of the headers temporary put on here just to check the exhaust system. So what I'm working with here is a 283 Chevy. This is probably a 1966, 67-ish era motor, according to the serial number I ran on it. The mileage is unknown. I found this engine for free down in the city. It was in somebody's garage. It was in the way. Where's my head? Here it comes. Hold on. Bam, I'm in the shot. So this engine I got for free. It was down in a city garage, laying on its side, and I dragged it home and popped the heads off. I had the heads rebuilt, freshened up. It's got a used stock 350 cam in it, a flat tappet cam. It's a 2-bolt main car engine, probably out of an Impala. Originally it was a 2-barrel engine. It's the short water pump early motor, and I don't know how many miles are on it. It's got the original bottom end in it. I put an oil pan and oil pump on it, but the bearings and all that are original. It has a little bit of blow-by. I've got the early style intake because these Kel Custom valve covers don't have any breather in it. So I've got the front mount early breather, and when I first put this thing together, it puffed like a steam engine stack out of there with blow-by, but the rings have kind of sealed back up and it doesn't hardly smoke at all anymore. So I got it kind of dressed up like 60 style here. These headers are a new addition. I did a video on these a little while ago. Originally I had some fender well exit 35 to 40 Ford headers. They kind of came out and then dumped down here. Then I had stainless steel side pipe exhaust. So now I'm gone and I built exhaust that goes onto the truck and pokes out back behind the cab. These are brand new cheapy knockoff Lake style headers. They're made out of stainless steel. I bought them on eBay. They were like $111. They're brand new. They're obviously probably made in China or somewhere like that, but they're stainless and I think they'll be all right on here. So I took a shot for $100. I took a shot. So here's the engine. I've got a Pertronix electronic ignition inside the original points distributor. Just a standard mechanical fan, regular GM alternator I've added up on here. And this air cleaner is a louvered unit. It's probably some kind of aftermarket thing from the 60s. The chrome's fair on it. It's got a little bit of rust on it here, but it's low profile to get under the hood of this thing. Somehow I lost the bottom of the air cleaner, so I'm just trying to mock up a piece. I've got this filter, which is new. It's a little dirty, but it's new. And I've got a bottom piece that doesn't go to this, but I think it'll hold this filter just fine, and then I put that top on there. Once I bolt it down, it should be all right. So the carburation here, this is an Edelbrock Carter style carburetor. It's a 1403. It's a 500 CFM carburetor, which is plenty for this 283 Chevy. When I originally put it on here, it was a little lean and it would cruise and it would surge, so I took it apart and I richened up the main jets and seats. It's got electric choke. It runs all right. It runs pretty good, and it runs pretty good on this engine. The intake manifold. This is an early Edelbrock CB3, which I think is their precursor to the Performer. It's pretty much like a stock 4-barrel style intake manifold. It's dual plane. It's aluminum, and it's the early style one with the breather in it, so I can run it with these early style valve covers. So I've got a whole 60s theme going on with the engine, with the Kel Custom valve covers and the Edelbrock CB3 intake and that chrome air cleaner. So that's the engine. I fished the wiring all back through the cab here, through the new firewall. I've already got my wires run back to the alternator. These are the wires for the coil, which I got a brand new MSD coil to put in here, which will fire off the electronic ignition inside the distributor. And I went and I put a new fuel filter on down here. I'm running a stock mechanical pump. I put a new fuel filter on, and I had to also put new motor mounts on because I had put new motor mounts on in 2005 when I put the engine in the chassis, but the one must have dry rotted, came apart, and it was broke on that side. So I've got new Energy suspension urethane motor mounts in here. I've also hooked the wiring back up for the starter, and I ran the wiring up here. This is the wiring for the headlights and all that up here. It's down in the lower part of the frame. So I'm just trying to, probably for this episode, just do a bunch of little tinkering on bits and pieces here. And this thing is actually coming together pretty fast now. I probably can get it running here in the next... Here's a shot of the engine from the driver's side. You can see Edelbrock CB3 here on here. Can you see it? Yes, I think so. Like I said, this is the precursor to the Performer, which has been a very popular Edelbrock intake for the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years. But I think this is the original style. It's pretty much a knockoff of a factory 4-barrel intake manifold, but it's aluminum, and it's got the early water neck and the early oil filler tube. I had to make this one, put a bend in this. Usually it would stick out at an angle over here, but with the way the alternator's mounted, I had to take a piece of exhaust tubing and I went and I bent this over to get it over here, but still got the original old oil fill cap, and this is where the oil goes in to the engine, because there's no oil fill holes or breathers in these original Kel Custom valve covers. And this being an early 283 engine, it also has the down here there's a canister that mounts onto the intake manifold. Instead of it having a PVC system, it's got a road draft tube down the back, so I can also run that with these valve covers with no PVC. Once I got the brakes functional, I should be able to hook up the gas tank and throw a battery in this thing, and I should be able to fire it up and drive it around a little bit. Let me get the coil. We'll throw the coil in, and then we'll hook some of the rest of this wiring back up. Here's the coil I'm going to use. It's a MSD was a Blaster 2 coil, and I bought this one with a ballast resistor. I was going to use it in my another application where I needed the resistance, but I believe because I have the Pertronix in this, it doesn't need the ballast resistor to knock it down, knock the voltage down here. Here's the ballast resistor, so I'll save this for another coil application where I need a ballast resistor. But here it comes. Aha! This is number 8203 if you're curious. So the purpose of a ballast resistor is if you're running this coil with your points ignition, cars with points ignition, they fire the off when you hit the starter. It fires the engine on 12 volts, and then it steps the voltage down with the ballast resistor down to about 10 volts or so, and it runs on 10 volts through the point system, so it doesn't burn up the points with excessive voltage. But since I'm using an electronic ignition with the Pertronix in this thing, it can run to straight 12 volts here without the ballast resistor knocking it down. So I'm going to hang on to this for future application. I'm just going to put this MSD Blaster 2 coil straight into the system and hook it up. It's positive negative on here. I already got the wires from the wiring harness ready to go. So we'll just slap this sucker in and plug it back in and hook it up. Coil bracket here on the firewall. That should just hold this. So here I got to back the screw off a little bit. So let me get a wrench. I got to loosen the bolt up on the back of the firewall here and swedge this thing open just a little bit. Okay, so I got the bracket spread out here. Fortunately, my little binder screw is too short, so I got to get another screw in there, but this is holding it good enough to hook it back up. So I got two wires from the dash. One is the coil positive wire and the other one's the tack lead. And then I've got two wires from the magnetic pickup in the distributor. And I trace it back. The red one is the positive, which will go on this side. So let's hook up the positive here. Just happen to have a little bit of dielectric grease, so stab a little of that in there. On the positive coil wire. The positive ignition wire here. The tack wire always goes on the negative side of the coil here like this. And where's the negative side of the ignition? Right here. Like so. I'll just get some little zip ties and boondoggle all this up nice here together. down out of the way. Pretty much all the engine wiring is hooked up now. The alternator's all hooked up. I got the this here, what do you call it, Bernoulli tube. This is for the coolant temperature sensor. So I'll just take a little zip tie and I'll just boondoggle all these together here to keep it kind of neat. And then fix my choke wire, get the electric choke going. All the wires under the on the engine are complete now. So let's see if the air cleaner is going to clear this distributor wire. So I thought it hits this distributor wire, but I have a plastic sheathing on it, and it did hit the air cleaner before it, so I had the plastic on there, so it'll be all right back here like this. Or actually, I wonder if it'll. There we go. The thing I got to do is I got to cut a new stud for the carburetor because I don't know how that disappeared, but it appears to be missing. So I got to cut a new piece of, I think, 5/16 rod for the air cleaner to wing nut the bolt down on. But the engine is all hooked up, ready to go. So that ought to hook the ignition all up. I still got to run the positive battery cable from the starter back to the battery itself. I got to find that. I know I got it somewhere. I got to locate that, hook that back up. And there's no coolant in the radiator yet. I'm not sure. I might have to pull the radiator back out to run the front brake line across the cross member because I forgot to do that before I put the radiator in. But once this is getting pretty close, ready to fire up here, I've got to pull the headers off, put the gaskets on. I've still got duct tape over the exhaust manifold holes from when I had the engine in storage. So I'll open that up, I'll bolt the headers on permanently. But I think I want to wait till I run the, I've got to finish running the rear brake line up to the master cylinder here. You can see the front port doesn't have any line in it. I got to run the line up from that, so maybe I'll do that next. Get that, as soon as I get that done and get the front line over here, let's go take a closer look at this. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Over here on the firewall, I've got a, I believe I used an AMC Jeep, I think a Jeep Cherokee master cylinder, if I remember correctly, or an AMC Eagle master cylinder. But here in the front, this is the front brake line, and it's coming to this solenoid here. This is a line lock for doing burnouts. And how this works is there's a switch on the dash, and you step on the brakes, and then you turn the switch on, and there's electric solenoid in here. It holds hydraulic pressure onto the front brakes when the switch is on, and then you let off the brake pedal. It releases the rear brakes, but it keeps the front brakes on, so you can do burnouts by having the front wheels locked up. And then when you want to go after you're doing your burnout, you just click the switch and it releases the solenoid, lets the pressure return back to the master cylinder, and takes the pressure off the front brakes. So I added a line lock on this. If you go back in the channel, all the way to the start of my channel back in 2009, you'll see some burnouts with this truck when I originally had it on the road. In 2009, I was at my buddy's hot rod party, and there's a series of burnout videos. I'll put a link up here. A series of burnout videos that actually burn out until I blow a tire. It's pretty exciting. And I had my old exhaust wide open, so it sounds pretty good too. So I still got to run the front line from here down to the frame, and then it's going to have a T, and it's going to branch out to both front wheels. When I get my brake kit, we can put all that together. And the rear line, let's see, where is it down here? On my brake line video, I ran the brake light switches back here just a little bit under the firewall. I've got to run a line from the brake light switch up here and then tie into the front port of here. And I also have a residual pressure valve which will mount in the line. It's a 10-pound residual pressure valve that holds a little bit of drag on the rear drum brake so it doesn't let all the fluid return. So I've got to plumb that in. So that's probably the next step now that the engine's about finished up. Alright, so I ended up switching the coil bracket here. The way it was, this coil wire was rubbing on the air cleaner a lot, and I know I had it set up that way. Then I saw there's a wear spot in the plastic where it was wearing through a lot, so I switched it up. I put a different bracket on here, and now I got the coil hanging over here. I'll just tie the wires back up, and then I got to boondoggle these plug wires up here, but that gives me a lot more room to the air cleaner, and it keeps the coil low, doesn't hit the valve covers. Well, that's some more progress here on the Model A Hot Rod Shop Truck. Thanks for watching this episode on the Model A Hot Rod Shop Truck. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for alerts. Tell your friends. And as always, we'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop for Model A Hot Rod Shop Truck action.